1987, family gone after picnic, 9 years later. Lakebed discovery shocks all. The picnic that ended in silence, a Minnesota family vanished into the summer haze. 9 years later, a lakebed secret screamed for justice. The summer of 1987 was warm and golden in Brainerd, Minnesota, a small town nestled among lakes and pine forests. On July 12th, the Carter family, Tom, 38, Susan, 36, and their daughter Ellie, 10, drove to Lake Mille Lacs for a Sunday picnic. Tom, a high school math teacher, was known for his dry humor and love of fishing. Susan, a librarian, had a quiet warmth, her nose often buried in a book. Ellie, with her freckles and boundless curiosity, was the light of their lives, always sketching birds by the water. They packed a red cooler with sandwiches, lemonade, and a Polaroid camera, planning a day of laughter by the lake's sandy shore. Witnesses saw them at 3 p.m., Tom grilling hot dogs, Susan reading under a willow, Ellie chasing dragonflies. By dusk, they were gone. The next morning, their blue station wagon was found parked at the lake's edge, keys in the ignition, picnic, blanket folded neatly inside. The cooler was missing, along with the family's bags. Sheriff Dan Larson, a gruff veteran of Crow Wing County, arrived at 9 a.m., called by a ranger. No footprints led to the water, no signs of a struggle. A half-eaten sandwich lay on a picnic table, ants marching over it. Larson interviewed campers. A retiree, Carl Jensen, saw the Carters laughing at 4 p.m., but noticed a man in a gray jacket watching from the trees. Didn't seem right, Carl said, but he'd left before dusk. By noon, a search began. Divers scoured the lake. Volunteers combed the woods. Nothing. The Brainerd Dispatch ran a headline, "Family of 3, missing after lake picnic." Rumors swirled. A drowning, a runaway, a drifter's crime. Tom's brother, Mike Carter, 35, drove from Minneapolis, his voice cracking as he told Larson, "Tom wouldn't leave without a word. Something's wrong." Susan's diary, found. In the car, had a final entry, July 12, 1987. Ellie's sketches are beautiful today. Tom's happy. Perfect day. Mike pushed for answers, but the case stalled. Divers found no bodies, and Larson's team ruled out drowning. The gray-jacketed man was a ghost. No description beyond tall, maybe 30s. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, BCA, joined, but leads dried up. By fall, the Carters were a cold case, their faces fading from milk cartons. 9 years later, in August 1996, Lake Mille Lacs gave up a secret. Divers training near the picnic site spotted a red cooler, wedged in the lakebed's silt, 30 feet down. Sheriff Larson, now graying, watched as it was hauled ashore, its lid rusted but intact. Inside, a Polaroid fluttered out, preserved in a ball, sealed bag. It showed Ellie, her wrists bound with rope, eyes wide with fear, a man's shadow across her face. Larson's hands shook. This wasn't a drowning. Mike Carter, now 44, was called to the station. "That's her," he whispered, staring at the photo. The cooler held more. A fishing lure Tom owned, a child's drawing of a bird, and a scrap of paper with scrawled numbers, 46-342, 93.701. Coordinates? Larson contacted Detective Sarah Kline, 40, a BCA cold case specialist. Kline studied the Polaroid, noting the shadow's outline, a man, broad-shouldered, wearing a jacket. The coordinates pointed to a remote cabin 10 miles from the lake, owned by a local named Roy Hagan, 45, a mechanic with a rap sheet, petty theft, bar fights. Hagan was linked to the Iron Range Syndicate, a Minnesota crime ring dealing drugs and guns in the 1980s. Kline's gut twisted. Had the Carters stumbled into something deadly? She and Larson drove to the cabin, finding it abandoned, its windows boarded. A rusted knife lay in the dirt, its blade stained. That night, Mike received an anonymous call. "Stop digging, or you'll end up like them." The Polaroid's shadowy photo trapped a girl's terror. Its shadow named a man who wouldn't stay. Hidden. Mike Carter gripped the phone. The anonymous voice, "Stop digging, or you'll end up like them," echoing in his Minneapolis apartment. It was August 13th, 1996. The Polaroid of Ellie, bound and terrified, seared into his mind. The red cooler pulled from Lake Mille Lacs had turned the Carter family's 1987 disappearance into a murder hunt. Mike, now a real estate agent, called Detective Sarah Kline at dawn, his voice tight. "Someone knows I'm asking questions," he said. Kline, at the BCA's St. Paul office, noted the call's burner phone origin, untraceable. "Stay safe, Mike," she said. "This is bigger than we thought." The Iron Range Syndicate's shadow loomed, and Roy Hagen, the cabin owner, was their first lead. Kline and Sheriff Dan Larson revisited Hagen's cabin, 10 miles from Lake Mille Lacs. The coordinates from the cooler, 463042, 93.701, matched its deed. Inside, the cabin was a time capsule. Dust-covered furniture, a 1980s calendar, a whiskey bottle. Kline found a locked drawer, pried it open, and pulled out a map of the lake with a red X near the picnic site. Larson's jaw tightened. They were targeted. A faded photo showed Hagen with a man in a gray jacket, both smiling outside a Brainerd bar. Kline recognized the jacket from Carl Jensen's 1987 statement. "This is our guy," she said, bagging the photo. Hagen, now 45, lived in Duluth running a garage. His syndicate ties were rumored, never proven. Kline interviewed Carl Jensen, now 70, at his Brainerd home. "That man in the jacket," Carl said, studying the photo. "He was at the lake, watching the Carters, had a scar on his cheek." Kline's pulse quickened. Hagen's DMV record showed no scars, but the second man? Unknown. She dug into the syndicate, finding a 1987 BCA report. The Iron Range crew ran meth through rural Minnesota, using lake cabins as stash houses. Tom Carter, a teacher, wasn't linked, but Susan volunteered at a shelter where addicts talked. Had she overheard something? Kline pulled Susan's library records, books on local history, one on Minnesota's underworld, checked out June 1987. Mike, restless, visited Brainerd, walking the picnic site. The lake's calm surface mocked him. He met Ellie's old teacher, Mrs. Clara Olson, 60, who gave him Ellie's 1987 sketchbook, saved after the disappearance. A drawing showed a man by the lake, labeled Scary Guy. Mike froze. It matched Carl's description. Tall, scarred, gray jacket. He sent it to Kline, who cross-checked syndicate files. The scar pointed to Victor Russo, 38, in 1987, a syndicate enforcer last seen in Duluth, 1990. Was Russo the shadow in the Polaroid? Kline questioned Hagen in Duluth. His garage smelled of oil, his eyes wary. "Don't know the Carters," he said, lighting a cigarette. "Cabin's been empty years." Kline showed the Polaroid. Hagen's hand twitched. "Never seen it." She pressed about Russo. "Vic? Dead, probably. Bad crowd." Kline left, unconvinced. That night, she found her car's tires slashed outside her motel. A note was tucked under the wiper. "Lake keeps its secrets." Mike woke to a package on his doorstep, a Polaroid of the Carters' picnic blanket stained with blood. The blood-stained blanket held a family's fate. Its blood named a killer who walked free. Mike Carter stared at the Polaroid, his Minneapolis apartment dim in the August 1996 dawn. The picnic blanket, folded in the Carters' car in 1987, was now blood-stained in the photo, delivered anonymously to his door. His hands shook as he called Detective Sarah Kline. "They're taunting me," he said, voice breaking. Kline, in Brainerd, arrived by noon, bagging the Polaroid. The blood was fresh, likely animal, but the message was clear. The Iron Range. Syndicate knew Mike was closing in. The 1987 disappearance of Tom, Susan, and Ellie Carter, sparked by the Lakebed Cooler's Polaroid, was no accident. Kline's focus sharpened on Victor Russo, the scarred enforcer, and Roy Hagan, the cabin owner. Kline sent the Polaroid to the BCA lab, hoping for prints. She revisited the Lakebed site with Sheriff Dan Larson, divers combing for more. A rusted fishing rod, Tom's brand, surfaced, but no bodies. Larson's face was grim. "They didn't drown," he said. Kline nodded, her mind on Russo. A 1987 informant's tip named him as the syndicate's cleaner, disposing of problems. Had the Carters been a problem? Kline pulled Tom's school records. A student, Bobby Kline, 17 in 1987, was expelled. For drugs, his father a syndicate runner. Had Tom reported him? Susan's shelter work surfaced again. She'd noted a client, Ricky, mentioning lake drops. Ricky vanished in 1988. Mike, against Kline's advice, visited Hagan's old cabin, now a crime scene. He found a loose floorboard, hiding a 1987 newspaper clipping, "Brainerd family missing." A scrawled note read, "Vic handled it." Mike's stomach churned. He called Kline, who traced Russo's last address, a Duluth flophouse, burned down in 1991. A neighbor, Ed Walsh, 65, remembered Russo. Scar on his cheek, always with Hagan. Left town after a fight. Kline dug deeper, finding a 1990 arrest warrant for Russo, assault, never served. Was he alive, watching? Kline interviewed Bobby Kline, now 26, in St. Cloud. "My dad worked for bad people," Bobby admitted, avoiding her eyes. "Mr. Carter caught me dealing at school, turned me in. Syndicate wasn't happy." Kline pressed about the picnic. Bobby paled. "Heard Russo brag about fixing a family by the lake." Kline's heart raced. She shared Bobby's statement with Larson, who pulled 1987 lake permits. A boat registered to Hagan was docked near the picnic site that day. Kline needed Russo, but he was a ghost. That evening, Mike met Clara Olson again, who gave him Susan's old library card. A hidden note fell out, July 11th, 1987. "Ricky says drugs move through lake," told Tom. Mike sent it to Kline, his hope fading. As he drove home, a truck tailed him, its lights blinding. He swerved, losing it, but found a note on his windshield. "The lakebed holds more." Kline called Mike, her voice tense. "Divers found a child's shoe in the lake, Ellie's size with blood inside." The shoe in the Silda child's shoe whispered of horror. Its blood led to a syndicate's heart. Detective Sarah Kline's voice cracked over the phone, telling Mike Carter about the child's shoe. Ellie's size, blood-stained, pulled from Lake Mille Lacs' silt in August 1996. Mike, in his Minneapolis apartment, felt the room spin. The 1987 Carter family disappearance, Tom, Susan, and Ellie, was now a murder case. The Lakebed cooler's Polaroid and bloodied blanket Polaroid deepening the nightmare. Kline, at the Brainerd Sheriff's Station, stared at the shoe, a pink sneaker, its laces frayed. The blood was human, type O, matching Ellie's medical records. "We're not stopping," Kline told Sheriff Dan Larson, her eyes hard. The Iron Range Syndicate, Victor Russo and Roy Hagan were closing in, but someone was erasing clues. Kline sent the shoe to the BCA lab, praying for DNA. She and Larson searched Hagan's Duluth garage, finding a locked safe. Inside, a 1987 ledger listed lake jobs with dates, including July 12th. Payments went to VR, Russo. Kline's pulse surged. "They planned it," she said. Larson nodded, pulling Hagan in for questioning. Hagan, sweating, denied everything. "Ledger? Not mine. Russo's dead, ask anyone." Kline showed the Polaroid of Ellie. Hagan flinched. "Don't know her." Kline left, but Hagan's fear lingered. She traced the ledger's payments to a Brainerd bar, the Rusty Anchor, a D syndicate front. Mike, haunted by the shoe, visited the lake, the picnic site now taped off. A local, Jenny Holt, 50, approached. "Saw your brother that day," she said. A boat circled near their spot, 2 men aboard. Mike pressed for details. One had a scar, Jenny said, pointing to her cheek. Russo. Mike sent Kline the tip, then dug into Susan's shelter notes, found by Clara Olson. A client, Ricky, described lake drops at Mille Lacs, naming Hagen. Mike's hope flickered. Susan had known too much. Kline raided the Rusty Anchor, finding a back room with cash and guns. The bar's owner, Lou Perry, 55, was a syndicate middleman. Don't know Russo, Perry growled. But Kline spotted a 1987 photo on the wall. Perry, Hagen, Russo, and a fourth man, Senator Paul Erickson, then a councilman. Kline's jaw dropped. Erickson, now 60, was untouchable. His campaigns tied to Brainerd's elite. Had he bankrolled the syndicate? Kline confronted Perry, who laughed. You're fishing, lady. That night, her motel room was ransacked. Her notes gone. Mike found another of Ellie's sketches. A boat with 2 men, one scarred. As he locked it away, his doorbell rang. No one was there, but an envelope waited. The senator's hands are dirty. Kline called, her voice grim. The shoe's DNA is Ellie's. And we found Tom's watch in the lake, engraved with a syndicate mark. The watch's Marque watch ticked with a father's time. Its mark named a senator who hid in plain sight. Mike Carter clutched the phone, Detective Sarah Kline's words chilling him. Tom's watch, engraved with a syndicate mark, found in Lake Mille Lacs. It was September 1996. The anonymous envelope, the senator's hands are dirty, on his Minneapolis table. The 1987 Carter disappearance, sparked by the Lakebed Cooler's Polaroid, Ellie's bloodied shoe, and a blood-stained blanket, was unraveling a syndicate tied to Senator Paul Erickson. Mike's grief hardened into resolve. His brother, Susan, and Ellie were murdered, and Brainerd's elite were complicit. He called Kline, demanding action. We're on Erickson, she said, but he's slippery. Kline, at the BCA, studied Tom's watch, its back etched with a syndicate symbol, a wolf's head seen on Iron Range drug shipments. The lab confirmed Ellie's DNA in the shoe, but no prints on the watch. Kline revisited the Rusty Anchor, pressing Lou Perry. Erickson's clean, Perry sneered, but his eyes darted. Kline found a 1987 receipt in the bar's trash. A boat, rental to Hagen, signed by Erickson. She tracked Erickson to his Brainerd mansion, but his aide blocked her. The senator's busy, he said, smirking. Kline left, but spotted a gray-jacketed man in the driveway, scarred cheek. Russo? Mike met Jenny Holt again, who recalled the boat's name, Wolf's Den. Kline traced it to Erickson's company, leased to Hagen in 1987. Mike dug into Tom's school files, finding a 1987 letter. Tom had reported Bobby Kline's drug dealing, naming Erickson's son, Greg, as a supplier. Had Tom crossed the senator? Mike sent Kline the letter, his anger rising. Kline interviewed Greg Erickson, now 28, in Minneapolis. Dad's legit, Greg said, fidgeting. Carter was nosy, that's all. Kline didn't buy it. She pulled Erickson's 1987 campaign records, donations from syndicate fronts, including Perry's bar. Kline and Larson searched the lake again, finding a rusted knife near the cooler site, its handle etched with the wolf's head. The lab found blood, Susan's type, A positive. Kline's hope dimmed. The Carters were dead. But where? She confronted Hagen again, showing the knife. You're done, she said. Hagen cracked. Russo did the job, not me. Erickson paid. Kline arrested him, but Russo was gone. That night, Mike's car was rammed by a truck, no plates. He escaped, shaken. As Mike locked his apartment, a new envelope slid under his door. The Wolf's Den holds the truth, Kline called, urgent. Hagen's dead, hanged in his cell. Someone's cleaning up. The syndicate's cleaner A man's death silenced his confession. A syndicate's cleaner stalked the living. Mike Carter's heart pounded. The anonymous envelope, the Wolf's Den, holds the truth. clutched in his hand. It was September 1996, Detective Sarah Kline's call about Roy Hagan's death, hanged in his cell, confirming the Iron Range Syndicate's reach. The 1987 disappearance of Tom, Susan, and Ellie Carter, tied to the Lakebed Polaroid, Ellie's shoe and Tom's watch, pointed to Victor Russo and Senator Paul Erickson. Mike, in Minneapolis, called Kline. "They're killing witnesses," he said. Kline, at the BCA, agreed. "Russo's alive and Erickson's scared." Mike vowed to find the wolf's den, the boat, or something more. Kline investigated Hagan's death, ruled a murder staged as suicide. A guard took a bribe, saw a scarred man near the cell. Russo. She raided the wolf's den's last dock, finding a 1987 log. Russo rented it July 12th, returning it blood-stained. The lab analyzed the lake knife's blood, Susan's with Russo's. Partial print. Kline's hope flared. She tracked Erickson's finances, finding a 1996 payment to a Duluth account. Russo's alias? She confronted Greg Erickson again. "Your dad paid for murder," she said, showing the ledger. Greg bolted, but Kline arrested him for obstruction. "Dad's untouchable," Greg spat. Mike visited Brainerd, meeting Bobby Kline, now sober. "Russo bragged about the lake job," Bobby whispered. "Said the Carters saw a drop. Drugs, guns, cash." Mike's jaw clenched. Susan's shelter notes mentioned drops. He found another note in Ellie's sketchbook. Boatman said hush. Mike sent it to Kline, who traced the wolf's den to a syndicate warehouse near Duluth. She raided it, finding crates, meth, guns, and a Polaroid of Susan, bound, dated 7/13/87. Kline's stomach churned. Susan had lived, briefly. Kline interviewed Senator Erickson at his office, showing the Polaroid. "Charity picnic, that's all," he said, smiling. Kline pressed about Russo. "Never met him." She left, but her car was followed, losing it in traffic. Mike, meanwhile, searched Tom's old classroom, finding a 1987 student essay. "My Dad's boat is cool. Wolf's Den." The author, Greg Erickson. Mike called Kline, his voice shaking. That night, Mike's apartment was broken into, his files trashed. A note remained. "The den's under the lake." Kline called, frantic. "We found Susan's scarf in the lake bed, tied to a concrete block." The scarf's weight of scarf sank with "A mother's hope." Its weight named a killer who wouldn't stop. Detective Sarah Kline's call about Susan Carter's scarf, tied to a concrete block in Lake Mille Lacs, hit Mike Carter like a fist. It was October 1996, the anonymous note, "The den's under the lake," on his Minneapolis table. The 1987 Carter disappearance, sparked by the Lakebed Cooler's Polaroid, Ellie's shoe, and Tom's watch, was a syndicate slaughter. Mike, trembling, called Kline. "Susan's dead," he said, voice hollow. Kline in Brainerd confirmed, "The scarf's hers, blood-soaked." "We're diving again." The Iron Range Syndicate, led by Victor Russo and Senator Paul Erickson, was erasing its tracks, but Mike wouldn't let them. Kline's divers found no bodies, but the block matched syndicate construction sites. She analyzed Susan's scarf, blood type A positive with a hair, Russo's DNA. Kline's resolve hardened. She raided Erickson's Duluth warehouse again, finding a 1987 video, Russo and Hagan loading crates onto the wolf's den. A voice off-screen, Erickson's, said, "Clean it up." Kline arrested Greg Erickson, charging him with conspiracy. "Dad didn't kill them," Greg sobbed, but named Russo's hideout, a cabin near Two Harbors. Kline's team stormed it, finding blood. Tom's type, B negative, but no Russo. Mike met Clara Olson, who gave him Tom's old fishing log. An entry read, July 10th, 1987. "Saw boat at lake. Men unloading boxes," told Susan. Mike's heart sank. The Carters had witnessed a syndicate drop. He sent the log to Kline, who cross-checked it with Bobby Kline's statement. Bobby, terrified, said, "Russo killed them on the boat, dumped them." Mike visited the lake, imagining Ellie's fear. A local, Ed Walsh, approached. "Heard a shot that night," Ed said. Boat sped off. Mike relayed it to Kline. Kline confronted Senator Erickson at a Brainerd gala, showing the video. "Resign," she said. Erickson laughed, but his hands shook. "You're out of moves," he said, leaving. Kline followed, spotting Russo in the crowd. She chased him, but he vanished. That night, Mike found his apartment's lock picked. Nothing was taken, but a Polaroid waited, Wolf's Den at dock, with Ellie's body in the water. Kline called, her voice breaking. "We found Ellie's remains in the lake, shot like the Polaroid." The child's remains. A girl's bones broke a lake's silence. Her killer's face was no longer a shadow. Mike Carter stood at Lake Mille Lacs, the news of Ellie's remains, shot, found in the lakebed, crushing him. It was October 1996, Detective Sarah Kline's call still ringing. The Polaroid of Ellie's body, left in his Minneapolis apartment, was real. The 1987 Carter disappearance, Tom, Susan, Ellie, tied to the Iron Range Syndicate, Victor Russo, and Senator Paul Erickson, was a bloodbath. Mike called Kline, his voice raw. "Find Russo," he said. Kline at the BCA replied, "Her skull had a bullet, .45, Russo's caliber. He's ours." Mike clutched Ellie's locket, vowing justice. Kline's lab confirmed Ellie's remains. 10-year-old, shot in 1987, weighted with syndicate concrete. No trace of Tom or Susan's bodies. Kline traced the Polaroid's film to a Duluth shop, sold to Russo in 1987. She raided his Two Harbors cabin again, finding a 1987 journal, July C. 12 Carter job done. Lake clean. Kline's anger flared. She confronted Lou Perry at the Rusty Anchor, showing the journal. "Russo's alive," she said. Perry cracked. "He's in Brainerd, hiding with Erickson's men." Kline got a tip. Russo was at a syndicate safe house near the lake. Mike met Ed Walsh, who recalled the 1987 boat's engine, a rare model owned by Erickson. Mike found a 1987 photo in Clara Olson's attic, the Wolf's Den with Russo and Erickson aboard. He sent it to Kline, who matched it to the video. She raided the safe house, finding Russo's jacket, gray, scarred owner gone. A neighbor, terrified, said Russo left hours ago, muttering about finishing it. Kline's fear grew. Was Mike next? Kline interviewed Senator Erickson again, showing the photo. "You're done," she said. Erickson smirked. No proof. Kline left, but her car was tailed, crashing her off the road. She survived, shaken. Mike, meanwhile, found a new envelope. The senator's lake house knows all. Kline called. "Urgent. We found Tom's remains in the lake. Shot. Same gun as Ellie." A father's bones sank with his family's dreams. Their killer's hand reached from the shadows. Mike Carter's world shattered with Detective Sarah Kline's call. Tom's remains, shot, found in Lake Mille Lacs. It was November 1996, the anonymous envelope, the senator's lake house knows all, on his Minneapolis table. Ellie's remains, Susan's scarf, and the Lakebed Polaroid had confirmed the 1987 Carter family's murder by the Iron Range Syndicate. Mike, tears falling, called Kline. "Erickson's behind it," he said. Kline, in Brainerd, agreed. "Tom's skull had a .45 bullet, Russo's gun. We're raiding Erickson's lake house." Mike's resolve burned. Victor Russo was out there, and Senator Paul Erickson was his shield. Kline's divers found Tom's remains near Ellie's, weighted with syndicate concrete. No Susan. The lab matched the bullet to Russo's known weapons. Kline raided Erickson's lake house, a sprawling estate on Mille Lacs. Inside, a safe held 1987 photos. The Carters, bound on the Wolf's Den, Russo grinning. Kline's stomach turned. A ledger listed payments to Russo, signed by Erickson. She arrested Erickson's aide, who named Russo's new hideout, a Duluth warehouse. Kline's team stormed it, finding blood, Susan's type, but Russo escaped. Mike visited Bobby Kline, who confessed. Erickson ordered the hit. Carter saw a drop, $500K in meth. Mike's anger surged. He found Susan's old journal at Clara Olson's, July 12, 1987. Tom says we report it tomorrow. Mike sent it to Kline, who traced the drop to Erickson's company. She confronted Erickson at his mansion, showing the photos. "Resign," she said. Erickson laughed, but his eyes betrayed fear. "Russo's your problem," he said, slamming the door. Kline chased a tip. Russo was in Brainerd, planning to flee. She set a trap at the lake, but Russo ambushed her team, wounding Larson. Kline escaped, vowing to end it. Mike, meanwhile, found a new Polaroid in his mailbox. Susan, alive, bound, dated 7/14/87. Kline called, her voice shaking. "We found Susan's remains, strangled, not shot, in the lake bed. The lake's final truth, a lake buried a family's..." Screams. Its truth drowned a syndicate's lies. Mike Carter stood on the shore of Lake Mille Lacs, the wind cold against his face, Detective Sarah Kline's call echoing, "Susan's remains, strangled, found in the lake bed." It was November 1996, the Polaroid of Susan, bound and alive on July 14, 1987, clutched in his Minneapolis apartment. The Carter family, Tom, Susan, Ellie, vanished after that 1987 picnic, their murders sealed by the Iron Range Syndicate. The Lakebed Cooler's Polaroid, Ellie's shoe, Tom's watch, Susan's scarf, and now their bodies pointed to Victor Russo and Senator Paul Erickson. Mike called Kline, his voice steel. "End this," he said. Kline, in Brainerd, replied, "Russo's cornered. We're raiding tonight." Mike drove to the lake, needing to see it through. Kline's team confirmed Susan's remains, strangled, weighted with syndicate concrete, found near Tom and Ellie. The lab found Russo's DNA on the scarf. Kline raided Erickson's Brainerd safe house, tipped off by Lou Perry, who turned informant. Inside, Russo fired, but Kline's team took him down, alive. Russo, scarred and snarling, confessed, "Erickson paid me to kill them." Carter's saw. "A $1 drop, meth, guns. I shot the girl and man, strangled the woman." Kline's anger burned. She arrested Senator Erickson at his mansion, the 1987 photos and ledger nailing him for conspiracy. Mike met Kline at the station, seeing Russo cuffed. "Why Susan last?" he asked. Russo smirked. "She begged, said she'd talk. Didn't matter." Mike lunged, but Kline held him back. Erickson's trial revealed his role, bankrolling the syndicate, ordering the hit to protect his campaign. Greg Erickson testified, exposing his father's deals. The Wolf's Den's logs and video sealed it. Erickson and Russo got life, Perry, and Hagen's allies fell. Mike visited the lake, scattering Ellie's sketches into the water, Tom's watch and Susan's scarf beside him. Clara Olson joined, giving him Ellie's locket. "They're free," she said. Mike nodded, his grief easing. Brainerd's headlines screamed, "Senator convicted in 1987 family murders." The lake grew quiet, its secrets spent. Mike walked away. "The Carters' light enduring. Thank you for unraveling this chilling Minnesota mystery with us. If the Carters' story gripped you, like, share, and subscribe to A Flicker Soul for more true crime tales that refuse to stay buried. What secrets does your town hide? Tell us below, and we'll meet in the next dark chapter.